Listen, we were talking about my dog shitting on the carpet. Now I'm recording. I didn't think that our podcast listeners would have liked to hear about my dog shitting on the carpet.
Yet here we are.
My
dog Ace kept shitting on the carpet recently, and I don't know what. Like, we would let him out before we leave to go somewhere. We come back and he'd shit on the carpet. I'm like, I let you out beforehand. Why are you shitting on the carpet?
Why are you shitting on the carpet now?
So now we have to, like, before we leave, we have to, like, keep him outside until he shits.
Oh no.
I'm like, and he'll like walk back up. And I'm like, no, I didn't see anything.
So do your dogs? For me, for the most part, Cody only poops when I take him for a walk. Does that happen with you?
The exact opposite. They only like pooping and peeing in the backyard. They'll like do it on the walk. Yeah, so like Ace will mark on the walk, so he'll just pee on everything, just for fun. But Kai really will only pee or poop when she's at home, and Ace will only usually poop at home. He'll sometimes poop on his walks.
Oh, no. Talking about our dogs.
Yeah, but it's nice that because in the backyard I can just leave them out there for a while and they can do their business.
Yeah, I can't leave Cody in the backyard because he'll start digging holes everywhere.
That's the one nice thing about my dogs. They don't dig holes. They don't care.
Oh, you're so lucky. Cody keeps ruining my lawn.
Man, your carpets.
And my carpets. My lawn and my carpets. What is going on? All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Pat, why don't you intro us in?
Oh, welcome to the, I was going to say award-winning, right? Oh, if ever.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the well-reviewed podcast, What Did the Gays Think? I mean, if you check our iTunes review, we are well-reviewed.
Yeah, we've got, like, what, 3 ratings? Yeah.
3 ratings. Yeah, I'm one of your co-hosts, Patrick. I'm doing well, if anyone cares to know. And my other co-host here is the magnanimous and fagmanimous Matt.
Okay,
how are you?
First of all, what does magnanimous mean? Because I don't know what that means.
I think if someone's magnanimous, they're like very good-hearted. They're very like swell people. How are you?
I'm doing okay. After this, I have to like basically, I don't know if you have to do this, but I have to do this. I have to like mentally prepare myself when I start working out again, because I want to work out again, and I'm going to start next week. But I have to like mentally get myself there. I have to be like, okay, I'm going to work out. Here's what I'm going to do. This is when I'm going to do it. Like, I have to be there in that mindset. And it takes a little bit to get to that mindset for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, it takes me... I can start. It's just the matter of maintaining the routine. That's the hard part. So thankfully, I've hit a good routine, except for yesterday when I died.
Oh.
But now I'm excited for tomorrow to go back to it.
Well, why did you die? Tell me.
Oh, you know why I died. Because I had my second dose of the Pfizer vaccine. And I woke up at 8 p.m. with a fever, body aches, nausea, and a headache. And I was like, hello?
Amazing. And that's a good segue into what we're going to be talking about this episode.
Yes,
which
what's
is
the topic?
More vaccine talk.
Yes.
This one specifically, and I'm going to be asking for some of your opinions during this episode because you...
Well, thank God, because this is an opinion podcast, honey.
Well, I meant because you're more in tune with this microbiome stuff than I am.
Okay.
But we're specifically going to be talking about reasons why people are not getting vaccinated.
Yes.
And I don't want this to be like an episode where we slander people who don't want to get the vaccine.
I'll do it.
Oh. Well, I'm not going to do it.
You can be the good angel. I'll be the devil.
Okay. Well, so the reason I don't want to do that is because I know a lot of people are hesitant for certain reasons. And, some of those reasons may or may not be maybe they're not informed enough, or maybe they hate vaccines, right? So it could be one thing or the other. On a scale of I hate vaccines to like, oh, I don't know, right? So I kind of want to address some of the things that people are worried about, and maybe like go through and say like why you shouldn't be as worried about the vaccine as you are, right? Yeah. And maybe we could like help some people out and be like, hey, maybe this will comfort you more knowing this information. Maybe that would teeter them on the edge to getting the vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, I always want to give my opinion. Solicited, unsolicited, I'm ready to talk about what I think.
Mm,
Yes, swallow that for me, will you?
I'm swallowing it. I'm getting ready.
For those who aren't watching, Matt was taking a sip of his Red Bull.
Yes, I'm trying to. It's 10 p.m. and I'm trying to stay awake for this episode. Um, so let's talk some stats because that's my remit. I love some math.
Mm.
So the Kaiser Family Foundation has this thing called the COVID-19 Vaccine Monitor. And it's like this research projects in which they're tracking, like via surveys, what people think about the vaccine and like, what are their experiences with the vaccine, etc. So one of the parts of this research study is a breakdown of like people in America and whether or not they want to get the vaccine, basically. So this happened back in March, so it was about it was like a month and a half ago now.
Yes.
So 61% of Americans at this time period said that they have already gotten or will get the vaccine as soon as possible. 61%, which I suppose it's a good number. I feel like it could be higher.
It could be. Yeah, it could be.
And who knows? It's been a while since then, so maybe that number has gone up. But at that time in March, it was 61%. Then there's the opposite end of the spectrum where, there's some categories in between like, oh, I'll get it only if it's required. Or there's another category is like, oh, I plan to wait and see like how things pan out with other people getting it.
Yeah.
But the last category is I'm definitely not getting the vaccine. And that is 13% of Americans in March.
Okay.
Okay. And what's cool, they break it down by age brackets and like ethnicity and like party lineups as well. So here's some stats.
Yeah, tell me what they do.
For this group, the people who say they definitely don't want to get vaccinated. Actually, sorry, this is going to be the proportion within a specific group. So in the 65 plus age group, 8% of people said that they definitely don't want to get the vaccine. Right. Okay. Comparing that to 13% of everybody is what the total number was. Right. That number actually goes up as you go lower on the ages. So when you get to 30 to 49, it's 18% of Americans say they don't want to get it.
Okay.
Which I think is interesting, like that 30 to 49, like middle age range. I think it's interesting that number is so high there. It goes down to 11% for 18 to 29.
I'm actually not. That's like a nice bell curve, though.
It's interesting. It went on the age.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the old people being more inclined to get it compared to the middle-aged people because it can affect old people and kill them, obviously. Oh yeah. And I'd like to think that the younger people
more inclined. There's a lot of when I look at the breakdown of the younger people, a lot of people fall into this wait and see category actually, which I think is interesting. But looking at the party breakdown, that's what I think is interesting. So 29% of Republicans say they will definitely not get the vaccine, as opposed
shocker.
to 5% Democrats and 9% for independents.
Yeah, well, weird. Really? 9% for independents versus 5% for Democrats.
Yeah, so 5% of Democrats say they will definitely not get the vaccine.
Whereas 9% of independents say they definitely won't. That's strange. I always thought independent... Well, then again, you can be independent but right-leaning, I guess. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you can. But then 29% Republicans, I think that is...
Of course.
Wild. That's wild to me. And then if you break it down by ethnicity as well, for white people, it's 15%. Definitely not. And then for Black Americans, it's 10%, and Hispanic, it's 8%. So white people, what's going on?
I thought I heard that there was actually a lot of vaccine hesitancy among minority groups, but maybe I'm wrong.
So it looks like from the stat that I'm looking at, the people who say definitely not are more so white. The people that are more so in the category of like, oh, I'm going to wait, or like, oh, only if it's required. I feel like I'm looking at the stat here. It's more of the minority category that fall into those two like middle ones.
Okay.
So yeah, there is hesitancy there, but the definitely not part is there's more white people there.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, it doesn't make sense, but I get it. It's not right.
Well, is it right or is it left?
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Go on. Go on.
Some other interesting stats that I saw. Um, People that said they had a high school degree or less were more likely to say definitely not than people who had some college or above.
Not shocked on that either.
The numbers being 16% said definitely not for a high school degree or less, as opposed to having college being 12%, and then
Yeah.
that's some college. But then there's a college degree plus, which is 10%. So correlation there.
It sounds like there's something, and I find that to be true with a multitude of issues. Where the more education you have, the more, I'm not going to say on the right side of the argument you are,
Ooh.
because that's objective, but more like liberal leaning, more socialist-y
Yeah.
vibes. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
agree with you in that generally amongst people who have college degrees, they will lean more left.
Right. And this is, I think, vaccines and science, for some reason, is now this leftist belief system.
I hate it. But what I also found interesting, like on this Kaiser Family Foundation vaccine monitor thing, they also list a lot of the reasons why this group does not want to get the vaccine. So I kind of wanted to go through those reasons one by one, and we're gonna just we're gonna debunk them. We're gonna be like, what the fuck?
Yes,
While not slandering people, because I still don't want to slander people. So let's start at the top. The top reasons that people say that they don't want to get the vaccine. 17% of respondents say that the vaccine is too new, there's not enough information about it, or its long-term effects are unknown.
Okay.
So I'll start with the vaccine is too new. What do you think about that? Is it too new?
I think the vaccine itself is new because we just made the vaccine, but the technology we're using, or the specific um, mRNA in like a lipid membrane is not new.
Yeah.
So the technology's been there. It's just that it hasn't been applied to a vaccine this rapidly before. But that's because we didn't have the funds because they poured a lot of money into making this vaccine. B, there's the obvious urgency of the pandemic, which spurred a lot of scientists and researchers to move faster on it and even compress some of their timelines. And yeah, those 2 points.
Yeah, and I have very similar points. So I kind of interpreted this in 2 different ways. So you mentioned one of them, which is the mRNA technology is new, which it isn't, but we'll get to that. And then there's the second one, which is it was developed too quickly. So let's talk about the vaccine development. Basically, how was it developed so quickly? And does that mean it's not safe to take? So, I mean, we talked about this in a previous podcast episode, right? So
Yeah.
The COVID-19 vaccine has gone through like the same trials that a normal vaccine would go through, like all 3 clinical trials, etc. So in terms of like testing it, it's not, there was no better or worse in terms of testing it like any other vaccine would. So it's gone through that same, rigorous process. But you said this, like some of those processes occurred simultaneously as opposed to in succession. And that was to help, gather data more quickly, but still none of those like steps were skipped. Like it went through the same steps that any vaccine would. Well, and this is also another interesting point here. So as soon as the Chinese researchers published the genetic sequence of the virus back in January 2020, Moderna finalized their mRNA vaccine recipe in less than 48 hours after that.
Right.
Because apparently it's very easy to edit mRNA. I mean, I'm not.
Oh, honey, this is what's nice about this technology, that we're now using it so readily, because changing how this works is so fucking. I mean, I don't work on it hands on, obviously, but just from someone who works with cloning transformation stuff, this must be the easiest thing on the planet. All you need to do is just, if I'm thinking about this correctly, is whatever system you're using that makes the mRNA, whether you're using like a human cell line, a bacterial cell line, or a human cell line that's infected with the virus that's producing the mRNA for you, whatever you're using, all you have to do is like change this DNA sequence that produces the mRNA, which can be done very easily.
Yeah, so I mean, that's also one of the points that I wanted to say is that like the reason they were able to start these trials so quickly is because with mRNA technology, they were basically able to, flip flop whatever genetic code they had for producing these, and they were able to start almost right away. Like I'm reading that Moderna's clinical trial started as early as February 2020. That's like before the pandemic even really hit America.
Yeah, because they wanted to see what the fuck if the vaccine would work.
Yeah, so Moderna was already in clinical trials in February before the pandemic hit. So like seeing as, was this vaccine really developed too quickly? We were like on it, like really fast.
Yeah.
And obviously Operation Warp Speed, we invested billions of dollars into this, to give them more resources a lot faster to do these clinical trials. So that was also another thing. A couple of other things that I found about why the vaccine was produced so quickly. Social media, being that it was so, prevalent, a lot of social media enabled companies to quickly reach out to people to volunteer. That kind of thing can't be done, or it couldn't have been done, 20 years ago, right? It wasn't as easy to get people to volunteer for these trials, I'm assuming.
And just, the social outreach of it was more difficult because, people had, of course, email and shit 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But now everyone, even young people, have, phones in their pockets, instant access.
It's a lot easier to recruit for the trials.
Yeah.
I tried to be recruited into the trial, but they were like, no.
Me too. They ran out of spaces. They're like, sorry, honey. I'm like, okay, well.
Yep. And plus,
shit.
I think they filled up with white people really quickly, and they were looking for minorities for the ones that I was trying to sign up for.
Yeah, the one I was in, they said they had enough for my age group, and they needed older people.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right, and then a couple of other things that helped it go so quickly in terms of production. Since COVID-19 was so contagious and widespread, the volunteers who got the vaccine and, were sent on their day-to-day lives to see if they got COVID or not. So there was a lot more exposure to COVID because it's a widespread pandemic. So it's easier to collect data that way when you have so much exposure to potential virus, right? So that's another thing that made this a lot quicker than a lot of other vaccine trials. And also, like, as soon as the companies were like ready with these vaccines and they had all their results, they had been manufacturing the vaccine even prior to approval to, get it ready to
go. Just in case.
Yeah. And so they were ready to go once it was approved, and they were like, here we are, here are the vaccines.
Yeah.
So all those reasons compiled on top of each other is why we got the vaccine so quickly. And I hope that eases some people's minds in terms of like, oh, was there actually enough time to research these vaccines?
Yeah.
These were researched pretty extensively, and it's just that it was a lot easier to collect the data so quickly because of everything that had happened.
Yeah.
So great. And then the second point, which you mentioned, is that people are saying that the mRNA technology may be too new, and there's not enough research into it. So to kind of debunk that a little bit, the tech that is used for mRNA, it's been studied for years prior to this, and you said this. I read that research on this stuff has started as early as the 1970s. And then back in the 2000s is when they discovered, they had this major breakthrough with putting mRNA in that lipid membrane or whatever you said. I think you said something like that.
Yeah.
That was like the early 2000s, and that was one of the hardest parts of getting this technology up and running. So they had been fine-tuning this tech for years prior to the pandemic. And I was reading a lot about these mRNA vaccines, and I mean, Moderna was working on a vaccine against Zika, and Pfizer was working on one against the flu. And these were like 2018, 2019, those years, right? They were producing other vaccines. But then when, the pandemic hit, obviously Pfizer and Moderna both shifted all of their research over to SARS-CoV-2 and that because of the pandemic. And apparently it was really quickly because this is a quote directly from one of the Pfizer researchers. It was really a case of our researchers swapping the flu protein for the coronavirus spike protein. It turned out that it wasn't that big of a leap at the time. So,
right.
Again, the technology was being researched for quite some time. So is it new? Yes, it's new in terms of these are the first vaccines that have come out, but the technology, it's been researched for so long.
Yeah, it's definitely not something like it wasn't like, first time doing it, no idea how it's going to work, or no idea even how to make it. It wasn't that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the mRNA vaccines is not like, oh, let's use it just for this. Like we've been looking at this for years.
Yeah.
Did you know that Mrna stands for modified RNA?
Does it really?
It does.
That's kind of lit. I like RNA. I think RNA doesn't get enough credit, honestly.
Yeah, because when Mrna became a company, I think back when they had really started this mRNA research, so they've been around, but they haven't had any real products yet because they were doing all the research needed.
Right.
And then obviously they got a lot of the funding from Operation Warp Speed to help produce. So that's kind of that part. So that one is the vaccine is too new, right? I'm hoping that bit of information that we just went through will help people realize that it's not too new. Like we queer, we ready to go.
Right.
So the next one, there's not enough information about it. So the way I've interpreted this, there's not enough information about it, quote unquote, is maybe that not enough data has been collected, or people maybe don't understand how it works. So
right.
In terms of data being collected about it, I mean, we talked about it already. Like, the same amount of data was collected as for any other clinical trial. And again, due to the other stuff that I've outlined before, the concurring steps of the processes, how widespread COVID was, Operation Warp Speed, we were able to collect that data a lot quicker. So there is a lot of information about it, and you can look it up. I don't mean to say like go Google it, but like there is a lot of information out there about these vaccines. If you really wanted to learn about it, there's information everywhere.
I think there's because my reaction would be, well, do you even know how a quote unquote normal vaccine works? Because if they are knowledgeable enough to understand how a general, let's say, like, you get your flu shot, or you get your, what other vaccines we have? Like your HPV or fucking whatever.
Yeah.
If you understand how that works, it's not a huge leap to understand how this one works.
Well, I actually wanted to ask you about this because the mRNA vaccines do work differently from other vaccines.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
So for people that are confused, or maybe they don't understand how the mRNA vaccine works, I was hoping that you, knowing this better than me a little bit, would be able to give like a brief overview of how this vaccine does what it does.
Basically, it's wrapped up in a lipid membrane, as far as I know. I don't know if they have anything on it, but lipids are the main component of your cell membrane, the outer wall of your cell. And lipids have this great ability to mesh with each other. So the lipid particle that's packed with mRNA touches your cell, it like engulfs it, and all the mRNA gets in your cell. Your cell knows how to operate mRNA. It knows how to translate it into a protein. So it doesn't matter if it's foreign mRNA, it just knows that it's mRNA, so it binds to it, it reads it, and then it makes a protein out of it. And you produce the protein. Your cell, I'm pretty sure, excretes it because I don't think it's because your immune system has to start acting on it, so it has to secrete the protein out of the cell,
right,
for it to start to work.
So like effectively, what like when you get this RNA in your cell, the RNA instructs the cell to make the protein effectively, right?
Yeah. So your tRNAs will start to bind to it. They'll read every codon, which is three nucleotides, and that codes for a specific amino acid. The amino acids line up, and the total sum of all the amino acids is the protein. Since it's a spike protein, it's a polypeptide with like primary and secondary structure. I don't think it might have tertiary structure. I don't know. But
Right.
yeah, so the mRNA instructs your body how to make it. Your body makes the protein. Your body then responds to that protein by making antibodies. And the whole antibody generation thing is not used to be well in my head from biology class, but I don't remember exactly how it works. But you know, your body's great at making antibodies. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, from what I've read, your body's also really good at getting rid of RNA that it doesn't need.
Yeah,
Uh,
RNA doesn't have a long half-life.
yeah. So because I saw I think I was reading like comments on Twitter or something, and I saw a lot of people like actually pretty concerned about like taking in this RNA that's not quote unquote natural. Like our body doesn't naturally produce it, so they're like, oh well, what else can that RNA do? Is it just going to hang around?
Yeah.
Um, so I was reading that like any RNA that is produced by our body is it doesn't have a long half life. Like you said, it
Yeah.
gets decomposed by our body pretty quickly. Um,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
single-stranded RNA is really sensitive. So, uh, eukaryotic RNA, like we're eukaryotes, so we produce RNA that has a 5' cap and a poly A tail, which kind of wrap around the RNA and bind to them to keep it stable. But things like prokaryotic RNA, like from bacteria, RNA from viruses, I don't think they're way less stable, so they'll break down pretty quickly. So, but even eukaryotic DNA or RNA will still break down fairly quickly. And the whole idea of it doing something else in your body, like
Well,
it's
people are worried about like long-term side effects of this, and
right, okay,
I mean
fine,
the
fine.
point I was trying to get to is that the RNA is just telling your body to make this protein, and then it doesn't hang around forever. Like it gets decomposed by
No,
the body,
yeah,
like any
I'm pretty
RNA does.
sure there are ACEs in your body. Any enzyme that ends with ACE means that it's an enzyme that breaks something down. So there are RNases in your body that will start to just break down the RNA, or just because of entropic forces of just the stability of the RNA just gone. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, the point I was trying to make is that, for people that say, oh, what are the long term effects of this vaccine? Well, like the RNA is not hanging out in your body forever. Like I've read that it hangs out in your body for at most a couple of days,
Mhm.
enough time to be producing those proteins so that our antibodies can go ahead and create immunity. Um, but yeah, that RNA is not doing anything. It can't change your genetic code or anything like some people are saying, like wild shit like that.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere, literally.
It's just like, hello. It's just like a set of instructions. It's a piece of paper. It's like, here, do this.
Yeah, it's a recipe, honestly. It's just a recipe for a protein, and your body just sees it and like, oh, let's make it.
Yeah, I mean that's what
So,
RNA does, right? It's literally just telling your body to make proteins.
yeah, it's
So
the middleman between DNA and protein.
yeah, so literally the vaccine is just a new RNA saying, hey, make this protein, and then that's how our body creates antibodies.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool.
Oh, I love it.
um, right. So I also looked at, because we talked about this. Long-term effects are unknown. A lot of people have this concern because they're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's only been around for so long, so we don't know, like, 10 years down the line after getting this vaccine, what are the long-term effects of this vaccine. Besides what I just said, the fact that RNA gets broken down by the body and like it doesn't
Yeah.
hang around for that long. Um, Also, just generally from like previous research on vaccines that I've seen, there's almost no delayed effects from vaccines after 2 months after getting the vaccine.
Right.
And that's for all vaccines. Um, Literally, the most delayed effect they've ever seen is 2 months. So that's why when we were collecting data on all this, they had collected data for more than 2 months so that they could see if there were those delayed side effects. But there were none for these vaccines. So I don't, based on what we know about vaccines in general, I don't think that there's going to be any long-term effects with this. And again, I know mRNA vaccines are new, but just knowing what's in the vaccine, mRNA and what it does, and how it decomposes after a couple days. Like, I don't think that there's any long-term effects that are going to happen there.
Yeah, I mean, there's the lipids, there's the mRNA, and there's a couple other things that they have in the vaccine serum to keep it stable. And then there's just the protein. Well, the lipids are going to get engulfed in your membrane and broken down. The mRNA is not sticking around because it's going to get broken down. And the spike protein you produce is actually going to get picked up by your immune system and thrown away. So really, it's got like,
yeah,
it's perishable goods, honey.
You know, in 2 weeks, all you're gonna have left is the antibodies for the protein. Everything else gets broken down.
Yeah, I'm assuming you'll be fine.
I actually do, because one of the other reasons that people don't want to get it is because they don't know what's in it. I actually did look at what is in each one. Just to see like a list of ingredients. So the main components, here's Pfizer. mRNA. Then it's those lipids that you mentioned, which is literally just like a fatty membrane that goes around the mRNA to protect it. That actually, like, the lipid itself is the hardest part of the vaccine and making them in the first place.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because apparently, like, if you were to just inject the mRNA, your body would catch it too quickly before it could even enter your cell. Our immune systems are actually really good at detecting foreign things.
Thank God, honestly.
So if you just did like mRNA straight into your body, like your body would catch it too quickly and it wouldn't be able to make the proteins. So they have to cover it in the lipid membrane so that it actually avoids like our immune system for long enough so that it can actually start making the proteins. Because they were ready with the mRNA like back in the 2000s. They just had to figure out this whole lipid thing, or how to get the mRNA to avoid our immune system, which I thought was cool. Right, there were the lipids, and then there's just like you said, some other ingredients. There's some sugars, some salts, like things like that, to just help stabilize everything else in it. I mean, I was looking at those ingredients. There's some of these compounds look scary. It'll be like phosphate dihydro or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. So, I'd look up each one and I'd be like, oh, it's just like a salt. Like,
yeah.
Like, it's all non-harmful compounds that are just there to stabilize it. So really, like, you're at most putting like mRNA, that fatty lipid, and then some salts and sugars into your body. Like, that's it.
I mean, like if basically getting the same thing if you swallow cum. So like, it's really the same thing, because it's like cells, sugar, salt, DNA, which is basically just the precursor to RNA. So like,
oh my God, are we just getting shot up with cum?
Not me. Watching a TikTok yesterday about a man who injected himself with cum and then got an abscess in his arm.
Why did he do that?
I don't know. It was some doctor reacting to a video of a man who injected cum into his arm and he had an abscess and he didn't get it treated.
But what was the purpose? What was the original plot of the movie?
What was the reason? But yeah, like, if you're swallowing cum, you should just get this vaccine, because it's the same stuff, basically.
If you're swallowing cum? Definitely helping those of our viewers who are nervous about getting the vaccine. Definitely helping them there.
All those posts that were like, if I eat McDonald's, I don't have to worry about what's in the vaccine. I'll be fine.
Okay, so the next list of reasons. So 8% of respondents said that they don't believe the vaccine is effective, they don't need it, or they don't know what's in it. So we talked about what's in it. So I'm hoping that kind of eases that point. They don't believe the vaccine is effective. This one is interesting, because people will go off about, like, they'll see the number 95% efficacy, right? And they'll be like, oh, that means they have a 95% chance of not getting COVID and a 5% chance they will get COVID. Like, that's not how it works. Not how it works at all. That's not how stats work. So in terms of the efficacy of the vaccines, Basically, what a 95% efficacy means is that you have a 95% less of a chance of catching COVID compared to a non-vaccinated person, which is the same thing as saying you are 20 times less likely to catch COVID than a non-vaccinated person.
Right.
Or a non-vaccinated person is 20 times more likely to catch it.
Yeah.
I think putting it in that perspective might be a little bit more helpful there. And of course, this data was collected over the course of the vaccine trials, and also data is currently being collected day by day by people. And I think the numbers have changed a little bit. Like Pfizer went down to like 90% efficacy or something like that. So it might not be 20 times, it might be like 10 times less likely to catch COVID or something like that. But yeah, it's not that 5% of people catch COVID. It's that, it's the likelihood in which you will catch COVID.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
I mean, yes, obviously it does. It's just annoying that people don't get that it makes sense.
I mean, people misinterpret stats all the time, which is a huge issue, and I may talk about that in a different podcast.
But even if they thought it was like 95% chance you won't get it, 5% chance you will get it, that's still really good odds. That's still, because if you're unvaccinated, it's obviously higher that you will get it. You don't even need to quantify it. You just know if you logically, oh, if I'm unvaccinated, it's going to be a higher percent. So even if it was 95% you don't, 5% you do, I'd still get it. Because it's like almost no chance that I'll get, like...
People are wild. And you know what I find funny, though, is that the flu vaccine, the regular flu vaccine, is between 40 to 60%.
Yes.
In terms of efficacy, which means that, like, you might be 2 times, I think if I did that math correctly, you might be 2 times less likely to catch COVID than someone than an unvaccinated person. Not like, COVID, the flu.
When Mitch McConnell brought that up during his little like powwow with the Republican men, he's like, I found out the flu vaccine was less effective than COVID. I'm like, shit. God damn
people. Also like the flu vaccine is not mRNA or anything like that.
Yeah, it's an old school vaccine.
Yeah, but these vaccines are still used every year, and they're approved by the FDA and etc. And they're only 50% effective, or 50% efficacy. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you get I know a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't get the flu vaccine, so why would I get the COVID vaccine? It's the same thing as the flu, blah blah blah. First of all, COVID's not the same thing as the flu. Unfortunately, because if it was the same thing as the flu, then we would have a lot less problems.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier on us.
Yeah, because the COVID is 6 times more deadly than the flu, 1.
Yeah.
And 2, it's a lot more contagious. So it's a lot easier to spread it around, which is horrifying.
It is, yeah.
Plus, all 3 vaccines, the mRNA ones, Moderna and Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson, were all 100% effective at preventing severe COVID, hospitalization, and death in the clinical trials.
Yes.
Yes. And that's the whole point.
That's all you need. That is the only stat you need to tell. Well, it's not, because people still don't get it. But that should be the only stat you have to tell people.
It means that 0 people who got the vaccination in the trials went to the hospital from COVID or, died literally from COVID.
Yeah, like, that should be it. The conversation should be over.
So obviously when these vaccines enter the real world, there have been some people who obviously got vaccinated, still got COVID, and still died. But the amount of people in which that happened to, the number is 88. 88 people who got the vaccine died from COVID, as compared to how many people have died since we started vaccinating people? Like...
too many?
Too many. Compare that to the number of unvaccinated people that died from COVID. That 88 number is a lot smaller.
Yeah, and like, obviously when you increase your sample size, because the trials aren't, they're representative to an extent of the population, but when you increase your sample size, you're going to get some data that obviously, it's not nice to look at. Like, it's not great that people are starting to die, but like, yeah, it's just increase your sample size. You're going to increase your variance.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be outliers no matter what you do.
Yeah.
people are gonna, if you get the disease, and sometimes it's gonna be severe depending on what risk group you're in. Sometimes it happens. But like I said, 88 people compared to 500,000 people or whatever is quite a number.
It's a pretty big deal, yeah.
Pretty big deal. All right, and then the other one where people say they don't need it.
I mean, if they really feel like they don't need it, what the fuck?
So my assumption is that the people who say this, that they don't need it, they're either young, like maybe they're not in a high risk group, or maybe they're in like a rural area in America where rural. I don't know why I can't say that word. A more closed off area of America where maybe you don't see people as much.
Yeah.
So there's less of a chance that COVID gets spread in that instance. So I think it's probably those people in my mind are the people saying, "Oh, I don't need it because I there's no chance of me getting it in the first place, or like if I do get it, then it won't kill me." Right? The young people, and the non-high risk people.
Yeah.
So I mean, while you may not be in a high risk category for those people, the fact of the matter is, if you do get the vaccine, then you may prevent yourself from spreading COVID to someone who is a high risk person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the way I see it. Like, I'm all about getting the vaccine to protect other people. Like, do I think, like, I don't want COVID, obviously. If I got COVID, I probably wouldn't die from it. Just because of, I'm a younger guy, and I consider myself to be healthy.
So young, especially like a baby.
A baby. So yeah, if I did get COVID, like, it probably would have been okay. Yeah. But I could have also spread it to somebody else. So like the reason I got the vaccine is to protect other people, right? That's like my main reason of getting it.
Yes.
So maybe I didn't need it, but like in terms of the entire population of people around me, like I need to get it for us as a group to beat this pandemic.
Right, because like the polio vaccine is still given, right, to children.
I think so. Yeah.
But no one has a chance of getting polio in the United States.
Well, yeah, because
but it's still given to children, so unless you're like an anti-vaxxer or whatever. But but that's the thing though. Like, even though these things may not ever happen to you, you still should get vaccinated.
Yeah.
So I'll never get polio, even if I wasn't vaccinated. But I'd rather be vaccinated because you never really know.
Yeah, it's a just in case. You never know. Polio could resurface. Like, we don't know.
God, I hope not.
The world is filled with endless possibilities.
Ugh,
but also, like, the fact of the matter is, our goal is to reach herd immunity, right?
Yeah.
So in order to reach herd immunity, in which there's very little chance that a virus can continue spreading because enough of us are vaccinated that it won't spread as much. In order to reach there, most people seem to agree that 70% of the population needs to be immune in order to get there.
Right.
So just to help like get to that number, like even if you're not like in a high risk area, if you're in a rural area or a high risk group, like just help us out, get us to that 70% number. Then we can get the heck out of this pandemic.
Yeah, I think, well, okay. I personally don't like to rely on herd immunity. I don't like that. I mean, it's obviously it's a sound idea where there are enough members of a population that are immune that the people who are not immune will most likely not come into contact with each other and will keep themselves isolated. So if they do get infected, they won't infect other people. But herd immunity breaks down. It doesn't take. Yeah, it's not like super great. All right, like the best thing to do is having a fully immunized, protected population.
Oh yeah, like don't get me wrong. I think that 100% vaccinated is the ultimate goal. I think that's what we should try to achieve. But just knowing that there's a whole bunch of people that don't want to get it, like 70% to reach herd immunity, and just like stop the spread until it's hopefully dies out.
Stop the count.
Stop the count. No.
Stop.
Just trying to get up to that 70% number. You feel me?
No, yeah, I feel you.
And yeah, we talked about, we talked about people that don't know what's in it and that's why they're afraid of it. But like, you can literally find the list of ingredients online about what's in these vaccines.
Yeah, it's just cum.
It's just cum. Moving on from cum, steering us away from cum in this.
Sorry.
Yeah, some other reasons that were listed. They're concerned about side effects. They don't like vaccines in general. They're not concerned about contracting COVID, or they have a fear of needles. So, I mean, we talked about some of these, but the one I want to hit on is the worried about side effects, because the people who don't like vaccines in general are like, I'm sorry, I can't help you there.
Yeah.
If you're just not into the whole concept of vaccines in general, then I don't know, get some help. Like,
that's natural selection at work.
That is.
They're weaning them out.
But yeah, so right, worried about side effects. So there's some people who don't want to get the vaccine because they're worried about, a lot of people are saying, oh, I got a fever, I was nauseous, some people even got like worse symptoms too. Depending on who you are, because I feel like it's different for everybody. So some people are just worried about like what the side effects are going to be. And I feel like out of a lot of these concerns, like this is one of the more reasonable ones in a way.
Yeah.
So for one thing, I'll just say this, like you can't catch COVID from the vaccines. That's not how it works.
Right.
At least the mRNA ones. I don't know about the J&J one. I don't know how that one works.
No, I don't. The J&J one is a modified cold virus that is producing the spike protein. So you still can't catch COVID from it.
Okay, because the virus is not COVID, right?
Yeah, it's they used, I think, a cold rhinovirus or something that gets in your cell, injects an mRNA, which codes for the COVID spike protein.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot when people hear virus, they're like, "Oh my God, you're shooting a virus into me." And people.
But that's what normal stereotypical vaccines are like.
That's true.
The flu vaccine is the flu virus.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But with the mRNA ones, you're not actually getting a virus in you. It's just producing a protein that's on the outside of the coronavirus, but it's not the actual virus itself. So you can't catch COVID from the vaccine. So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
And the only reason your body has side effects when you get the vaccine, it's not because you're sick. It's because your body is having an immune response to some foreign thing that's in your body.
Yeah.
In which case, the foreign thing is those proteins that your body is trying to like create antibodies for. Mm-hmm. And usually an immune response to something being foreign in your body is like, let me crank up the heat and try to get rid of it, right?
Yeah, that's the thermostat goes up.
Yeah, so that's why you might get a fever, and some other immune responses like having nausea, chills, etc. That's just your body's natural immune response to something foreign being in your body. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that you're sick. So yeah. I get that some people may be afraid of the side effects. But from what I've seen and what's on the CDC website is that most people get kind of what you and I had, which is just like a mild fever.
Tell me about it. How was your experience? Let me know.
I had a mild fever. So the highest I got was 99.6 the next day, the day after I got the vaccine. Fever 99.6, and I was nauseous for a little while. Those were my side effects. And my mom said the same thing. My mom said that she had those two symptoms, but she also had chills as well. I didn't have any chills. How was your experience? You just got it.
I'll tell you. Okay. I woke up the following morning feeling fresh as a daisy. I went to the city. I had a good time. I ate a lot of food. I did, however, take Tylenol in the morning as a preemptive strike.
Yep.
Then I get home. I take a nap. 8 p.m. rolls around and I wake up. It's technically 28 hours post-stab. And I feel like death. I feel like I said in our Discord chat, like the Grim Reaper had started to pull the soul from my body. I had a 100.7 fever.
Oh wow.
Body aches, nausea, like just the feeling of ickiness all over my body. I woke up and I was like, ugh. And Kel was like, "Are you feeling sick now?" And I was like, "Yes."
Yeah.
Thankfully, he was nice enough to go get me Wawa soup and a Gatorade and ginger ale and
that
crackers.
Gatorade,
so We watched Tenet,
Oh,
the
there you go.
movie, and it was great. It lasted like 4 hours, and then I went to bed. I woke up today feeling amazing.
Amazing.
I
So
loved
yeah,
it.
from what I've heard from people and from what I've read, like the side effects are simply, very mild version of flu-like symptoms, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, most of the time it goes away after 1 or 2 days. But again, some people did get worse side effects.
Not all
So
people.
not all people, not all men.
Hashtag not all men.
Not. So I understand concerns about getting side effects, but again, you're not catching COVID, and obviously you have a much less likely chance of dying if you get the vaccine than you do if you catch COVID.
Yes. Yes.
So that's my thing about it. Like, you shouldn't be as worried about the side effects as you should be about catching COVID.
Yeah.
Anywho, yeah, again, the fear of needles one as well. Like,
Listen, our collective friend Radhika doesn't like needles. She
oh,
got the shot anyway.
yeah, that I don't like needles either. But
Really?
yeah, usually when I give blood or if I have to get a shot or something, I have to look away from the needle. Um,
Well, okay, so like there's I understand not wanting to look at it sometimes, but but do you get like clammy and like hyperventilating and like you're like I need this to be over now, like I'm frightened.
no, I'm not that bad. I guess you could say I'm squeamish a little bit. Like, I don't like the idea of looking at something piercing my skin. I don't like the idea of it in general. Don't talk about piercing skin is not sexual. There's nothing sexual about that. Stop laughing.
Okay. Okay, God.
Since when is a dick piercing your skin? Tell me. Tell me.
Piercing is a strong word. Penetrating is probably the better word. Yeah, I mean, I don't obviously have any problem with needles. I have so many tattoos, so I didn't. I watched. She was like, want me to count you down?" I was like, "No, let me see it."
Yeah, I'm a little bit squeamish, but a lot of people get like real anxiety from needles.
Yeah.
So I get that, but like it's like real quick, just like the time that it takes for the vaccine, and I got it, and you did too. It's literally like it's literally like 2-3 seconds.
Yeah, and you're over.
Yeah, super quick. So like don't freak out too much about it. I mean, I know that's not going to help some people who actually have like real anxiety from it. But it's super quick and it doesn't hurt that much.
I mean, I will say though, the second shot did hurt more than the first shot.
Not for me. The first shot hurt more for me.
I think it's about the actual like the person doing it and where they stab you. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time it's healthcare professionals who will know where to stab you.
But I've learned from a healthcare professional that you're not supposed to pinch the arm before you apply injection. You're actually supposed to spread the arm.
Spread your legs.
Okay, I brought up the whole penetrating thing, and you're like, "This is not funny."
So you started it.
I say spread the arm, and you're like, "Legs."
You spread the arm you spread your legs before injection. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Oh.
You started this.
Yeah. Well, I'm so sorry. Everyone.
I blame you wholeheartedly.
Just like everyone else in my life, it's fine.
Yeah. All right, that's all I got.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hello.
No. Yeah. Okay. Great.
I mean, Troy blames me for everything that happens to him too. Like whether or not I'm involved at all.
He like comes home and like had a bad day at work, and he's like, "Fuck, Matt, why'd you have to do that to me?
Why'd you have to do that to me at work? God." It's like, hello.
Nice.
I'll I think one time I put a glass that was okay. Maybe it was kind of my fault because I put a glass kind of close to the edge of the counter, but he knocked it over. So he's like, "Why did you put the glass there?" It's like, you knocked it over.
Well, don't put the glass so close to the counter.
Not everything is my fault. Well,
well,
the gay agenda is my fault, 100%.
Yeah.
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 All right. Sign us out, Pat. Get us out of here.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you don't follow us, Twitter is the best place, WDTGT Podcast, or just search What Do the Gays Think Podcast on Twitter. That's where you get all the updates. We stream What Do the Gamers Think on Twitch, Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturdays. And then, of course, any podcast site, Spotify, iTunes, whatever you use. What Did the Gays Think? We're there. Subscribe, like, comment, whatever you want to do. Make your voice heard. We love interacting with people. We love posting stuff on Twitter mostly.
Heck yeah.
If you're on YouTube, obviously follow and like us, subscribe there, leave comments. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
So I'm supporting, if you swallow cum, you can take this vaccine, Patrick.
What?
Okay. And you are?
I'm leaving. Goodbye. I'm done. This is the last episode of the podcast. I'm done.
Thank God. All right.
All right. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.